Welcome, Chris. Hi, Bernice. Hi.
There we go.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
How are you going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, really well. I hope this quarantine is treating you just fine.
Yeah, I'm used to it anyway. I work from home, so I'm always home anyway.
Yeah, that's good. It's nice. Well, I just wanted to do a couple of things of housekeeping before we get going. We've got so much to talk about. And I saw
Okay.
your post about all the pens, and I think we could probably spend the whole hour talking about those. But we've got a bunch
Right.
of questions, we've got a bit of whimsy, we've got practical questions, historical questions, we've got a lot to get through. So the first thing
Okay.
I want to let everyone know was that unfortunately you're obviously underneath, which is where all the comments scroll up over.
Sure.
So people just need to tap their screen somewhere mysterious, and the comments should drop down, so that will help them see you better and what you're showing better. The other thing is we are recording these and keeping them for posterity on our YouTube channel and also on our website. So if there's anything that you wouldn't like to be kept on there, don't comment or don't say something you wouldn't like to be seen. That's pretty much it. So I'm ready
Okay.
to if you are.
I'm ready.
Great, thank you. Well, firstly, thank you for taking the time. I know there's lots of people that are really keen to have a chat to you, mainly to just scope out your collection, but
Right.
there's a lot to see and chat about with regards to the very essential tool for a calligrapher being the pen holder, and
Sure.
wonderful that thing that you are able to do with them and create them create them for people to fit them perfectly. So I wanted to
Sure.
talk to you. I know that your history with with calligraphy is to do with your grandfather. I just want to talk to you a little bit about, your great-grandfather, how you came to pen making, pen turning, and calligraphy, I guess.
Okay. Well, it started in 2012. I purchased my family farm from my mother. It's been in the family since the 1830s, which for U.S., that's a long time. So my great-great-grandfather who built the house that I live in, he was a penman and did visiting cards when it was where he wasn't able to get out and farm or do those sort of things. So rain, snow, those sort of things. And I didn't know that until I bought the house, and there was a room that was kept all the family archives in it. And going through that room, I opened up a wooden box, and there was all of this, what I would come to know as Spencerian later, writing, specimens, a book,
Yeah.
supplies, inks that were still good. I mean, it's pretty crazy what all was in there. And I thought it'd be kind of neat to learn how to do.
Yeah. How long would the box have been there, this box of treasures? Like, how old was the ink?
Since 1920 or so,
That's amazing.
1920, 1930. So, going through all of that, I reached out to a couple people trying to find out how to learn how to do it. And then they told me I needed to buy an oblique pen holder.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the heck is that, to start with?
There's so many words.
And do what?
Yeah. Just so many words. What does this mean?
I know. Yeah, it's all the terminology. And I was okay. So I went out and I looked, and I was like, I have like 3 choices here, and that's all there is. I believe it was, I knew it was Paper Ink Arts, and I think I found John Neal at the same time. And so, well, I got a couple choices. So I got one just so I had one, because my great-great-grandfather used just a straight holder. I had no oblique pens.
Okay.
And from there, I said, well, I've got a lathe. I've never used it. And all I was doing was turning something around and figure out how to make this flange and attach it. And that's how it all started.
So you
I took
and learning to turn at the same time, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I was learning the whole thing, learning calligraphy, learning to turn.
Wow.
I just kind of dove head first. And so I took a few that I made for myself I joined the local calligraphy guild, and I took a few to a meeting, and the lady that was running it said, well, do you want to sell those? I was like, really? She goes, no, you don't understand. There'd be a market for this because, they were decorative and looked pretty or whatever, out of nice woods. And she said, I think you ought to try and market these. And so that's how it all started. Put a few on eBay for maybe a month or so, and everyone would sell before I'd wake up the next day. And I opened a website in May of 2013.
Okay. So within a year, you were ready to go with website and
Less than a year, because it was October in 2012 when I found everything. So it was like May.
Which says to me a lot in terms of, there would have been word of mouth about your holders and how good they were, which to me says that they were fitting people well, they were comfortable. It kind of brings me to the question of, what is it that people need to look for when they're buying a custom holder? Or, is there a key thing, or what is it that makes a great fit between a pen holder and a calligrapher?
The biggest thing is, first off, I know it's hard. Ignore the pretty. Ignore what it looks like. Feel it in your hand. Now, that can be a hard thing to do, especially over the internet. And that's why I've developed several different methods which you can use to try and fit a different pen to your hand. So you might take a pencil, wrap it in string, build it up, and find something that's first comfortable for you to hold. That's the key, is finding something that's comfortable for you to hold for extended periods of times. Because if you have a comfortable pen and a relaxed grip, you're going to be able to write all day long without taxing your hand, without pain. So that's the number one. The other thing would be, the engineering behind it. Does the nib line up with center and all that? And we can go into those things too if you want in this video. I'm open to do whatever you want. I've got kind of everything ready to go for any possibility. So,
well, you can also let the comments be our guide, because I do have loads of questions, obviously. You mentioned about the comfort, and that brings me to one of our followers' questions, and I really wanted to put that forward as well, just to make sure that gets answered, which was with regards to them getting quite tired doing engrosser, script, or copper plate, more than other styles, when she ran written with a straight holder. So she's just wondering if it might be due to her oblique holder that she uses. It's a cheap dual workshop holder, and she's twisted the flange to allow the angle, low down the angle between the nib and the paper. It doesn't really solve the problem of the hand pain. So she wanted to know how you diagnose problems with a holder if somebody comes to you with that kind of question. It must be difficult being so far away from someone to kind of, do you get on a call with them and look at how they're holding it, or what's your best option for helping someone in that situation?
Usually what I do is I say, have someone else take a picture of you writing, so I can see what your hand's doing, how your arm's positioned, and how you're holding. 9 times out of 10, it's a death grip. That's usually the problem. It's holding the pen too tightly. We haven't been taught since, the turn of the century, since, like the early 1900s, to properly hold a pen and write in school. And people just are expected to grab that tool and write with it, and they don't learn that, loosening up your grip. If you're holding a pen properly, someone should be able to walk up and just pull it right out of your hands. You shouldn't be holding it tight.
Right. And
if you're squeezing, that's taxing your muscles. And there's no reason to do that. There's no reason to squeeze that tight.
Yeah. So it might be the holder. It maybe is more likely related to the tension between the hand and the holder kind of thing.
Correct. It's usually whenever there's someone with a problem with fatigue or hurting hand, or, minus a medical condition like arthritis or something, I can usually attribute that to them just holding the tool wrong. That's the first thing. That's most of the time. The other thing may be, your pen is really too small or too big for your hand, and you haven't experimented with different sizes, which
often we just get
is a part.
It's a one-size-fits-all thing, but it really isn't.
It really isn't. No, it's a completely personal preference. I told you already about wrapping the string. Another thing is you can go to like a hardware store and just pick up wood dowels. And feel what dowel feels comfortable in your hand, and you can, it's marked what size it is, and then we can work off of it from there. So it's one of those things people just really need to take their time and study what size pen is diameter wise is going to fit your hand well.
Works for them, and because it is different from your normal handwriting, you've just got to sort of pick up a pen, whatever, and you're not writing for extended periods of time. But with calligraphy, obviously you are, and you want to make sure that you're comfortable. So it is a great suggestion to just try those out and see what fits you best. I think that's a really good suggestion. You also, talking about difficulties with the holders. or with the grip. But you talked about, well, it was a while ago now, about no-nos when you know, with the whole, and I was looking at a video, because you've got a great YouTube channel as well, but on your IG, about no-nos to do with bullet flanges. So I actually hadn't heard that word before. So I personally wanted to know, what is a bullet flange and should I have one?
Okay.
And also any other no-nos that you kind of really incorporate into your design process, that you just, you know, or you see things and you just go, that's just what, don't do that, you know. Don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll start with your first question with what is a bullock flange. And I have some teaching tools here, so I'll probably try and bring them up.
Okay.
All right. This is a bullock flange. You'll see it, and it's got a little screw in it. And what happens is you loosen that screw, and the flange peels apart a little bit, and you can slide a nib in and fit it in. It also has, trying to get a good picture of it, has this center hole which will allow a crow quill nib to be used. And it was developed by a man named Bullock, Isaac Bullock. That's one of his originals. And his was a little bit different because it had two crow quill holders, but we don't have this one size anymore so much. So, but it allows you to quickly insert any flange or any nib without having to adjust this flange for each nib. It's great for beginners because you can stick it in, try it, don't like it, unscrew the screw, put it in there. Otherwise, you have to adjust this brass to fit the nib that you're using.
Which I think, you know, we're not, you know, we're not designed to be engineers as well. Well, some of us are. Apologies to anyone who is. But, you know, my brain personally doesn't really go to think, oh, I should really adjust my holder. I just, you know, like I said, it feels like when you first start out, it's a one-size-fits-all thing. So, right. You know, so that's a great starting point. But understanding that you can actually also manipulate so many elements of your calligraphy journey, which also includes a holder.
Absolutely, and there's a couple more adjustments and stuff, and that, you know, the angle, the pitch of the nib, you know, and everything. And we can show you some of that too. Yeah, that'd be great. But that's the first thing. So that's a bullock. It allows you to try a bunch of different nibs without having to do that manipulation and learn how to adjust your flange from the get-go. You need to, but you know. So beyond that, things to look for is, and I've got one here that someone sent me. This is, we'll try and do this. All right, if you can see everything, kind of tie everything's together on that flange, okay? That's one that I made. This is one that someone else made. There's a big giant gap there. Yeah. Okay? With that gap being there, this is never going to close down on your nib. So you put a nib in there and it falls out. Yeah. So someone made the flange and it's useless. It's a worthless pin. Okay. The other thing that they did, that things to look for, is if you can see, I think you can, there's just a big glob of solder on the top of that. Yeah. So they didn't take the time to properly, like I did, solder all the way around. So what this one is called a cold solder joint, and that nut's going to fall off. Okay. So plain and simple. And it's things like that. It's details you look for. You look at, you know, is the end of it just like they chopped it off with a knife and never did anything with it? This is that same pin. Yeah. It's the attention to detail they take. Yeah. The number one thing, and then we'll get into that just because it's applies to this as well, is the geometry. Okay, you should take your nib and in a pin. I've got this is made for this purpose, for displaying it. Okay, when your nib is inserted, let me get it. There we go. That nib should line up with that center of the pin holder. If you see that, so that wire sticking out is just to demonstrate where the center of that pin holder is. And it should line up exactly with that, or to the left of it a little bit, not to the right, not past it. So it shouldn't be like that. Yeah. That's wrong. You should be able to line your nib up with the very center. That's the very first thing to look for, is that. That's the engineering behind it. If it's not lined up with center, it's not going to be a usable pin. Yeah,
makes sense.
Right.
No, I had something else in my mind. Oh no, so yeah, so you were comparing one of your holders there to another interior holder. And I wondered, I can see that you put a lot of heart and soul, and everybody does. And I think that that is the attraction as well, is that how much heart and soul you put into the craftsmanship of a pen. How important is that to you to make sure that there is that finishing touch on, on the screw or on the flange where you put the year that it was made?
Right. The year it was made, and why do I do that?
Yeah.
My hope in doing this is it goes back to me finding that box in that room in my house. Is hopefully someone 150 years from now will open up a box and find a pen made by me that was used by their grandfather or whatever, and it still works. It still looks nice. Everything's still functional about it. I'm hoping I'm creating heirlooms, that can be passed down to generations. And that's why I take that attention to the detail. And that's why I put the year that I made the pen on there, so you can look at it. And wouldn't that be neat to know, some old pen you find, what year it was made? You'd like to know that.
Yeah.
So,
well, it was the first question I asked you when you said about the box. It was like, well, how old is this box? That's
right. Yeah. People want to know, how old it was. People get really excited when they find an old antique flange and it says patent, 1894 or whatever. And they think, oh my gosh, this is awesome just because of the year. So
yeah,
I'm trying to keep that, that alive, that, this thing will hopefully be around for a couple hundred years or longer, so
yeah.
the pen will create.
No, that's really wonderful concept that, you just a thing that it's nice to see incorporated, and thinking beyond that. I've got a little girl, and I like to think that she's watching me doing this, and then maybe one day she'll do it. So it's lovely.
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely.
So I did have another follow-up question that I wanted to ask, and it's about it's jumping back a little bit to talk about the weight of the holder and the balance of it, and if you could describe the ideal balance. So somebody might like a long thin tail with a big grip. Other people might like a thinner grip and a short tail.
Sure.
How do you work out that balance, or is there an ideal balance?
There is balance. It's been taken literal sometimes, and you'll see people doing this sort of thing where they find the center and then they balance the pins. They might pins perfectly balanced. That's not what balance means. It doesn't mean that there's a center point in that pen that it's absolute, and it doesn't work like that, because balance for someone that holds a pen back here is going to be different than the person that holds it there.
Yeah.
What the balance is about is when you hold this pen in your hand and you're writing. Let me throw a nib in this just so it looks like it. When there's a piece of paper, this nib should just want to touch the surface. It shouldn't be so weighted that it's laying on the surface,
okay.
And it shouldn't take effort by your hand to hold it up. And vice versa, if there's too much weight back here, that's going to pull back on the pen and make your muscles do work. You want your muscles to do as little work as possible holding this pen steady.
Yep.
Beyond that, then you're going to manipulate it with your muscles and everything. But that's the balance. You just want this nib to rest lightly on the paper, shouldn't be pulling in either direction.
Okay.
That's balance.
Thank you. I hope that answers that question. I think it should do. I would like to know how long it takes to create a custom-made pen. I know you've got a video on your YouTube that says pen in 60 seconds, which I know is a lie, Chris. How long does it take you to make a custom pen on average?
It varies quite a bit because I do such extreme different things. I'll just give you an example for like a budget pen, which is a single wood and a flange and nothing else. I've probably got 20 minutes in it or so, maybe 30 minutes.
Yep.
So it goes pretty quick.
Yeah.
When I'm making budget pens. And those, are like that $40 price range, which is my starting point for handmade wooden. And then it can be an all-day process, when we go into something like I'd take watch parts and put them in pens.
Yeah.
And then shell inlays and all of flowers, real dried flowers incorporated into it. So that can be an all-day process of laying everything out. And, so there is no certain time. And that's kind of what I like about what I do, is the fact that I'm not working at a factory line churning out the same pen over and over and over again. One day I'll do a couple quick ones. Next day I'll be real slow. and they're all different too. So
Exactly.
it makes it more affordable for me.
Which makes me wonder what your favorite creation has been, if there is one, if you could name one. Or your most unusual. I can appreciate it's hard to say what a favorite might be.
Yeah, the favorite is hard because a personal taste, I like very, very simple pens. That's my personal taste. My own pens that I use are just a plain walnut pen, and there's nothing fancy about them at all.
Yeah.
Unusual. Oh man, I've done a number of unusual things. From on one pen, I put it was for an eye doctor, I remember, and I made the eye chart on it. I took little letters and attached them to the EPPC, the entire eye chart on the body of a pen. I've made what do you call it, from Doctor Who, the telephone booth. I've made that into a pen. I've taken a few Christmases ago, I bought a ring from Tiffany's, and I made a pen that unscrews, and the ring goes in the center of it and screws back together. So you actually have a real Tiffany ring in the pen, and you unscrew it and can wear the pen and then put the pen back together if you want. So been a lot of unusual things.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys, can you hear me?
You are. Yeah. I can hear you. Hold on, it's catching up, I think. Cannot hear you right now. We have lost. Am I the only one that's lost her audio? Can anyone else hear? That's what I thought. Okay. We can't hear you. And I'm awful at reading lips too, so that's going to be no. I'm talking. You can hear me? Ah.
Can you hear me? Everyone, can you hear me? Oh no. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Somebody say yes or no. Thumbs up. Okay. Let's get Chris back. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. Okay, so I've moved off Wi-Fi. I'm on data. Hopefully we'll get through this. Chris, come back. There you are. Okay.
I can hear you now.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, fab. So I don't know what you were in the middle of saying. I was asking about antique holders and that you replicate them and what's so important about doing that.
Okay, about the antiques. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I got into this, of course, my interest was historical from family point of view. Let me move my camera just a little bit. And one of the things that I wondered was, the tools they used before, which I had some examples of straight holders from my family. but then obliques. And there's several names that came up, Zenarian, Magnuson, those sort of things. So luckily, when I started making holders, it wasn't such a hunt for these items as there is now. So I was luckily able to acquire several at a reasonable price. And that started me on the entire journey of, I really liked recreating those items from the past, because they're hard to find, number one. And people, for example, Magnuson is always a big name. They say, I want to try a Magnuson holder. I want to find one. If you ever find one, I'm going to buy it. And I said, well, why don't I just try and find a little bit of everything? And then I have the ability to recreate it by taking dimensions from it. And that started a horrible obsession.
Which may now unfold in front of our very eyes.
Right, yeah.
And does that also take you down the, sorry, I can't remember the word. I want to say reconstruction, but that's not the right word. Renovation route. I know that you do renovate. So are you renovating antiques as well as replicating them?
I do, yeah. I do restoration work on people's, especially more often. So it's someone's grandfather's pen holder that they found that they'd like to, repair. I think on my YouTube channel, I have a video of one that I did that was a complete restoration from a broken one. Yeah.
I saw that you included a metal pin in the tail. Is that right, of that one?
That's correct. Yeah, that's.
You wouldn't put a pin in. You just are turning the wood for you.
Correct. Yeah, that pin is just a mechanical bond to reinforce that break that happened, so it doesn't happen again. Okay. So, but yeah, and that started the whole thing of me trying to acquire a whole bunch of different pins, which I've done successfully now to the point that I can usually just say, I don't need to buy that one. I don't need to buy that one because I already have one.
And so you started with the straight holders. I was hoping we could also chat briefly about the introduction of the obliques to the US and, where that all kind of came from.
The oblique was built for right-handed calligraphers. It's an aid. Up until, we'll start with the earliest patent I found is in like 1832, I believe it is, and that's from England, is the earliest patent on an oblique. It was the Americans that made it popular, from Spencerian and Grosser Script, Zenarian College and all of those places. And all it does is you take, let me try and do this. I'm going to flip a camera around here on us. I got a sheet of paper. So your lettering is that we're going to use the pencil at the angle of the lettering, which is always off to the right. Well, as you can see, if a person is using a straight holder or right-handed, they're against the angle of that. A left-handed is naturally built at that slant. So all the oblique does is puts the nib slightly out of line and allows them to write at that script angle. So, and that's what it is. It's just a tool. All of these hands that we know, be it English round hand, be it Spencerian, were all done originally with a straight holder. My great-great-grandfather did Spencerian with a straight holder. It is possible. You just take a paper and you turn it more. So Zenarian primarily brought this into being, and the Spencerian sons did as well. They were the ones that started it to help as an aid for right-handed calligraphers. So that's all it is. It's not necessary. I don't think it's necessary. When I write my Spencerian, I do straight holder.
Yeah, okay. And do you want to sort of adhere to what your great-grandfather did, or is it because it's more comfortable and that's why you learned?
Because that's what he did. It's a historical thing for me. So.
And that brings me to go back to a question that somebody asked in the video before we got cut off. So hopefully I haven't missed the whole question, but it was just about how lefties should go about, finding a pen for them.
Lefties can be very unusual, and the reason is because for some reason left-hand writers will either write with their hand straight or a hook, or anywhere in between. So a left-hand calligrapher could possibly use most use a straight holder, plain and simple, because they're built, like I just showed you, that angle. They're built at that angle. But there are exceptions to that, and a right or a left hand oblique could help them. And it just depends on their grip. So what I always suggest is, of course, is a little bit of a sales pitch on my part, is I make my deuce pin holder, which the flange comes out of. It's a straight holder, and then it comes with a right-handed flange. And if you put a little note in checkout notes, I'll make a left-handed flange and include it as well. So a left-handed can explore with a right oblique, left oblique, or a straight hole.
Yeah.
And my suggestion, just to find what works for your grip, and if you need help with it, people email me pictures and I'll help them out.
Yeah, and you can, Chris's website is Yoke Pen Company, just for anyone who is introduced to you for the first time today. And same with YouTube and Instagram, you'll get lots of insightful stuff from Chris there. I think maybe now would be a lovely time to have a look at some of your collection, if that's okay.
Yeah. Anything specific, or just kind of go through them a little bit?
Take us through. If people have got questions as we go, we can shout them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip it around to everything that's laid out here. So these are what are long tails, and I'll show you comparison here. That you can see is a speedball, and that's a long tail holder. So that's a 12-inch long tail. The point in these was nothing other than show, because when they were riding, they would do crazy flourishes, big movements, and it looks crazy. That's the entire point of a long tail pen holder. That's it. And
right.
Some of the common ones here, let me get them out real quick. We've got, these are Magnusons, which is what I talked about, made by Oscar Magnuson in Illinois. Bear with me, I'm one-handed. So these are Zenarian, and Zenarian College is the one that came up with the hourglass shape that we use today, and we know. They're the one that started with this. The very first holders, let me jump over here. I'll give you scale examples. This is the earliest oblique holder I've ever seen, which is a Spencerian oblique, and it's very, very thin. This swivels, and that's how they started, was just a stick. Cenarian created this hourglass shape that we know today, and that's what's most popular.
Okay. We'll comment about the long tails, I think, calling them the nose pickers. Carry on.
Yeah. Nose pickers, eye gougers. Yep, they are. And just got several different versions of that in this box. I mean, a bunch of different long tails, be it, Magnuson, Zenarian, there's others. Yeah. And then we can go into, box is a lot of ergonomic pen holders. And you'll see these remade today. To a point, let me get over here to where it's white so we can see. And the whole thing was they were carving them to fit your hand. So it was just like you were laying with your hand and close it, and it doesn't take any tripod or anything like that. And lots of people made ergonomics. People would just carve their own.
Yeah. Is there that suits best? It seems like I don't know, is that a Spencerian holder?
It's not meant for any style. Strom had this is a Strom, had an advertisement that said, this one was for this script and this one's for the other. But the reality of it is they're all just set at an angle. So it'll work for any script.
Oh, okay.
So, and Strom and, let's see, what else was in here? The Skeels that I was showing you, that's another one that was famous. Ransomarian had the triangular grip.
Right. Cecilia just said, can you tell us some more about the flat finger lay on those ones? About
the flat finger on the triangular?
Yeah, I think so. Or on the one.
The triangular. Ransomarian made these, and his thought was to make it so when you grip the pen, you had the grip that he taught every time. So when you place your finger on each one of those triangular surfaces, it's already laid there, and that's how you're supposed to hold it. It was helped as a training tool as well for pens. It's really comfortable, amazingly. I didn't expect it when I found one. So Let's see. And then we get into some oddballs. Like here is a Russian, I forget the name of it. It's written on it. Give me a second to pull this up. Steribus.
Wow.
That's the one it's an old Russian holder. And this moves out and you put the nib in, then you slide that up and it locks it into place. Plastic.
Wow, right. Does that work?
It works. I mean, it's odd. It's really odd looking. I've got this one. I don't even know what this is. I just saw it and it was so odd I had to get it. I don't know if it's a letter opener or what it is, but I have no idea. And then these are probably the rarest I have. These are the Kelchners. Kelchner was the cousin of, I'm going to get this wrong. I know I am just because we're live. Lupfer, I believe it was. In the Zenarian College, and he taught, and he was partner in it originally. And these were in his collection, and these are the actual ones, the only ones known from the Tower collection. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows these now because I've taught Huang how to make them, and Huang Dao, and then I make replicas of those. Very famous old holders. And go ahead.
What's the best way to maintain an antique holder?
Maintain one?
Yeah. Look after
the biggest thing is humidity with wood. Just like anything else that you have that's wood, is keeping the humidity constant, and probably in that around that 40% range. And just little drawers, and they don't get moved around a lot, so they don't get jostled much or scratched. So I think we lost your audio again. No. We'll see. Maybe you'll come back. Okay. Give you a moment.
Oh, everyone, thank you for your patience. Hi, I'm sorry. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. You don't know that I've gone bright red from here down. Somehow my face has not. Thank you. Now I've got to find Chris. We've lost him. He might have given up on me. I know, Harvest. I'm trying to find him. It really is. Thanks, Paul. So while we're just reconnecting, I've got questions all ready to go, which was, we wanted to know how long those really long ones were. I can't even remember what my last question was. Not important. Anyone else want to throw some at me before we get Chris back? Because we will finish at normal time, even though I'm breaking these up. We will still go till 1:15. So we've got about 20 minutes left. I'm sorry if I've missed anyone's questions so far. Oh, the tiny traveling pen. Yes, sorry, I did miss that one before. I will ask that. Nice question. Thank you, Harvest. Hi, Chisato. Welcome to the Patient Club. Oh, I can't find him. Just when we were right in the middle of the antique stuff. Ah! It's true, we can only laugh. You guys can laugh at me, I can laugh at me, it all works well. Oh, the chuck on the lathe. Okay, you guys have gone crazy now. Here we go. Well, fancy seeing you. Because it's taken long, I've just taken about 30 more questions. So are you available till 1 a.m. this morning?
That's funny.
Okay, so I think we're in the middle of looking at some beautiful pens. I don't remember what the last thing I asked you was. Cecilia wanted to know how long the tails of those last ones that you were showing us were. The really long tail, the very...
The really long tails are 12 inches overall. That's usually the extent of the length. Anything beyond that is just, you're going to smack yourself in the face with them. So yeah, 12 inches is the long one. They were typically sold in 8-inch and 12-inch historically is what pens were lengthwise. Okay.
I've had a question twice about your tiny traveling pen. Tell me all about it, and do it in 3 seconds.
You know, I just thought of this the other day. I need to track it down. Basically, a long time ago, this would have been in 2013, something like that. I made a pen as a joke for an EF66, and if you guys aren't familiar with an EF66, I actually have one here. Okay, that's an EF66 right there. Compared to a normal nib, it's this itty bitty thing that just doesn't fit well in anything. So as a joke, I made this pen that was 2 inches long or something like that, and made a tiny little flange just to accept that. Yeah. And someone said it was who was it? Anyway, someone said that I should I should send that around the country and allow people to write with it. So what I did was I made another one, because I gave it to her because that was such a great idea. So I made another one, put it in this little itty bitty metal tin, and started a book. It was just a little moleskin notebook, and wrote in the first page in my own writing, blah, blah, blah. It's where it started, and about myself, and that was it. And I chose someone and sent it off to them. And progressively, it's been to person to person to person, with each person doing their page in it. No. And I've also since started a broad edge version of it as well. So there's another little tiny straight holder out there. So, and it's just who gets it decides where it goes.
Yeah. Okay. It's like those books on a bench kind of thing. That's awesome. Okay. So we don't know where the pen is. That's the answer to that question. Harvest would like to know your favorite.
My favorite hand?
Yeah.
About all when I first started, I took a copper plate class, and then from there I got into engrosser script, and then I developed into Spencerian once I learned what was my great-grandfather was writing, and I pretty much stay Spencerian now anymore. I can do the others. I can do them all badly. Who am I kidding? I spend more time making pens than actually writing anymore. But Spencerian is my preferred script.
I think I could have guessed that, but you know.
Yeah.
It's not for me to say. Now we did have a technical question about the name. I don't even know what I'm asking.
I think we made. Yeah. It's crazy. You're not having any luck with internet today. Yep, I don't have any audio. unfortunately. Let me see the tiny back. Yeah, the piece that attaches to the, in one end of the lathe, to answer that question about how I drill the hole, is the chuck that holds the wood. And the other end, I put a drill bit in, a drill chuck, and drill the hole into the pen. Well, yeah, it looks like we're gonna, 1 minute. Okay. I see your question, Paul. Okay.
I mean, how many times can we do this, man? This is a record. Okay, so again, I really can't remember what we were in the middle of then.
There was a question about, I believe it was a drill in a hole, I think is what it was.
Did you know?
And I think I explained it, but I'll do it again just in case. The hole I think they're referring to is the hole that's in the center for a straight pen holder. And I have a video on my YouTube channel, but the chuck holds the wood, it spins. And then there's a drill bit that fits in a drill chuck that I run into it and screw, and it drills that hole. But pretty much anything that I make, for the most part, I have a YouTube video on how to do it. I don't have any secrets. I share it all.
Yeah. So your YouTube channel is Yoke Pen Company, not Yoke Pen Co. But you can obviously you can search for Yoke Pen Co. and you'll find it.
Yep.
Somebody asked if you can change a bullock flange to a normal flange.
You can. I've successfly taken out about every flange possible and replaced it no matter who it's made by, that I can recall. So yeah, it is possible to pull out a flange and replace it. Especially mine, I do it a certain way, so it is possible and easy for me to replace later, even though it's permanently affixed.
Can you tell us something about the pen making process that people wouldn't expect or know about? Now, I personally don't know anything really about the pen making process, so you could say anything and that's fine.
Right. Something you wouldn't expect. I think the biggest surprise for people that have been in here and making the pens is all of the aromas from the woods. There are woods, for example, that will make my shop smell like a flower field for the next 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
There's woods that, like, for example, you know the smell of Vicks, right?
Yeah.
It's made from camphor wood. And so when you turn that, I mean, my nose opens up even with filtration and everything. So it smells like Vicks in here. And there's just so many different smells that come from the woods themselves. It's pretty amazing. So.
That is cool. Yeah, I thought of that. That's really cool. Now, I mentioned that I bought a Yoke Pen Co. holder when I started 6 years ago, because there was so little on the market at the time that I could find. And I was so happy that you collaborated with Simon from Scribblers to do that. So I've still got that now. I think it's wonderful. And I've seen so many more calligraphers come on the scene. Obviously, since then, there's lots of people teaching. There's lots more calligraphers. I wanted to know how you manage demand, and have you seen an increase in demand over the last, well, 8 years since you've started? Well, not 7, 8 years since you started.
Yeah,
as a project.
Yeah, it's been up and down, and literally it went up and skyrocketed there for quite some time. And now it's kind of leveled back off to where I'm more comfortable, honestly. There's not, people fighting over them, and I was getting, people mad because they couldn't buy one and things like that.
Okay.
I do them as quickly as I can. I have a wait list, I try to keep it reasonable at about around that 8th week. So from the time we say, okay, we're making you a pen, approximately 8 weeks later, you're going to have the pen done and ready to mail to you. And I just handle it as quickly as I can. When I started doing this, I had small children at home, and now the children are in school. So I have a little bit more time. Children were in school until recently.
I've got children. Right. I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I just, I just tell people I get them done as soon as I can. And I don't, the biggest thing that I do to help out with that is I don't take money up front. So that way I'm not holding on someone's money and they're going, give me what I paid for. Give me what I paid for. That way I can say, things happened. It's a week later. It'll be all right. So they don't pay until they're done. Fair
enough. And on that note, even, you're a young, wonderful man, but are you, do your children want to take over the business at some point? Like, I know they're only young, but are you thinking about, you teaching, passing on your knowledge that way as well, so that, when you retire, that it might be something that somebody else can be as skilled in?
Yeah. I actually do teach. I teach from here. I have people, I've had from as far as ways like Flange comes from Vietnam, usually every year. Francesco came from Italy. People from all over the U.S. have come and take lessons. And the biggest thing is, that's why I have my YouTube channel and I give all that information out for free, is because when I started this, I didn't have anything to go off of. There was no information out there whatsoever on making a pen holder. So I struggled a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I wasted a lot of wood. And I don't want people to go through that again or it ever to happen again. So that's why I said, I'm going to make some basic videos, the very basics of it, and put it out there for free so people can learn. And then the way it doesn't become lost again. So.
Well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time tonight and also sharing all the information. I know you put loads on Facebook as well. Instagram as well. I will just, while we're talking now, just put out the word again for anyone who we haven't talked about their question. If I've missed it, please put it up again. We'll spend, because I'm very nervous that it's all going to collapse again. And I know that we need to come back again at this point. So I just want to make sure we get all the answers. If anyone's missed any, we've got one saying, come to Australia. As a fellow Aussie, I'll say go to Australia as well. It's great for the soul. I mean, I haven't been there, but
right.
So I'm just checking that I've got all my other questions here answered, which I think we've got through it, man. I think we've done it.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to ask, how do you approach your Spencerian?
How do I approach my Spencerian as far as let's be honest, I'm not approaching it as much as I used to. I think Paul asked one time how I hold my grip. And I'll just touch lightly on that. I'm by no means an expert at the actual writing itself, but I can touch on the grip and everything like that. So when I write my Spencerian, let me flip the camera. Okay.
Tool, vertical pitch of the tool.
Yeah. All right. So let me get a piece of paper or something so we can see. I think you can see what that is. Okay. So because I use a straight holder and it's at a slant, when I write my straight holder Spencerian, I hold my paper almost sideways like that. So it's almost perfectly sideways. And the way I hold my pen is in such that it is an extension of my arm, which is always something you should think about when you're writing. Your pen should not be a tool that's sticking out to the side necessarily. It's better as something that is an extension of your arm itself, even in an oblique as well, because it's going to follow the natural movement of your arm and your body itself. So that's how I do it. Instead of, the typical have your paper turned at that angle, I turn it much, much more at a 90-degree angle.
Somebody's asked, please show us your best works. well, it says walks. I think it means works. Do you have any walks while you're talking? So maybe
my best what? I'm sorry.
I think it says please show us your best work while you're talking. So maybe some examples of holders, but I assume that you send a lot of your best work off.
I don't have any done hardly ever. The moment they get done, I take a picture and it goes out in the mail that next day. So I actually did finish. I finished one today, but unfortunately it's a gift for a person's wife, so I can't show it. So I do have one done, but I can't show it.
We'll all stay tuned on the IG feed, okay? So that's where we'll find the best of the best.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so I think we're just about, I don't think we've had too many other questions come in the last bit. I do want to thank everyone so much for their patience while we got through that, and to you, Chris, for, just keeping on coming back.
Yeah. So thanks for having me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone's all doing well, calligraphy on, keep on lettering.
Yep. Absolutely. Keep writing.
Order from you is to email you, and your email address is on your Instagram page, is that right? Or via your website?
Yep. Website. It's all search for Yoke Pen Company and you'll come up with a way to contact me. So
exactly.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay. Well, you take it easy for the rest of the afternoon over there, and
all right. All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Chris. Thank you.
Bye-bye.